guys, Tony here, and in this video I'm going to do an installation, configuration and review of the Anthem MRX740 in my dedicated home theater. This is going to be a fun one for me because I have the Denon X8500H and so far I've been very happy with it, but will the Anthem MRX740 end up being a better option for me? Let's find out right after the intro. So before I start deconstructing my rack, let's have a quick overview of the specs of the Anthem MRX740. It's an 11 channel receiver with 7 powered channels rated at 140 watts of continuous power. There are 7 HDMI inputs, 3 HDMI outputs, with the first one having eARC support. There is also a USB Type A port and an Ethernet port in the top left. There are options for 12 volt triggers, which is handy for connecting power amps or any other device you want to control through your receiver, and it also has an array of other RCA inputs and outputs along the back. The speaker terminals are high quality, and overall the chassis looks great and has a nice modern feel to it with a high resolution display at the front. Further specs of this receiver reveal support for 4K 60 with the possibility to upgrade to 8K when it becomes available, as well as support for all the standard audio formats such as Dolby Atmos, DTS:X and Auro 3D. There are also a variety of streaming options available as well if that's your thing, but for me I'm mostly concerned with how it will perform in my home theater. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, I'm going to get started in the rack, but I'll speed everything up so you don't have to watch me do it in real time. What I normally do when using a receiver for the first time is to try and level match the speakers, or at least test that the speakers are installed correctly and are mapped to the correct speaker terminals. Especially as I have a power amplifier in the mix, I needed to make sure that everything was mapped correctly. The issue I came across right away was that when I was trying to play pink noise through each speaker, only the LCR were actually working, and when I moved to the left surround speaker, the sound was coming from the right speaker. So of course my assumption was I'd made a mistake when I plugged everything in. So I went and checked, and no, everything was 100% correct. So I went back and tested again and tried the rest of the speakers, but there were no tones playing through them. So I decided to unplug and replug everything back in just to eliminate the possibility of an error on my part. But when I tested again, same thing. So I either had an issue with my cabling, which was unlikely as the system had been running on my Denon without any issues, or there was something else at fault like a bug in the receiver. At this point I thought I would install Arc Genesis, as there were not a lot of options available on the web interface, and to my surprise, when I ran the test tones in Arc, everything played correctly. So it seems that there is a bug in the web interface when you're trying to play tones through the level system and adjust the trim. Now I will say that I did upgrade the firmware prior to starting any of these tests with the latest version at the time, but even then when I was trying to upgrade it, it didn't seem to acknowledge that the upgrade had completed successfully. But moving along, as I was conscious of the time that I had available for this review, I ran Arc Genesis according to the process demonstrated in the guide. However, when I looked at the results, some of the speakers and the subwoofer seemed to have very high levels, up to plus 12 dB. It appeared odd to me, and I thought that there had to be something wrong, or at the very least, something very strange with the way that Arc was adjusting the levels. The calibration made by Arc sounded good, but honestly I was a little bit underwhelmed. So I decided to reach out to the Anthem Audio Lovers Facebook group to try and sort it out. I made contact with a very helpful guy named Yves Saint-Onge, who offered to help me and try to resolve some of the bugs I had encountered, mainly on the calibration side. I will point out that I had encountered a bunch of cosmetic bugs as well, such as the OSD freezing on the screen until I rebooted the Anthem, as well as the level up and down would just show a grey bar instead of the actual volume levels. But these are relatively minor compared to the calibration issue that I wanted to go through. So I did a new Arc measurement with all of my subs powered on, but with the main gain lowered, and I sent my files to Yves. He noticed of course that the level set by Arc was still rather high. Yves explained to me that this is not a real concern except for two things. First, the output is then louder than normal with this new AVR series with the main volume, and second, If the levels are already set to maximum, there is no room to tweak and calibrate to get the levels and try to get it perfect for the calibration. As I had a loan extension for the MRX740 from Mick, Eve and I agreed together to try one trick that his buddy Paul posted on the AVS forums to force the AVR to play the sweeps louder. We needed to trick ARC into not disproportionately increasing the levels in the input signal to match the target curve and add this level increase at the output. After a conversation with Paul, Eve agreed to write me a PDF document with a step-by-step guide in how to perform the calibration. While he was writing the document, he asked me to be sure to enter manually into the MRX740 all of the speaker distances in all 4 of the speaker profiles, not only in profile 1. If we want to test improvements in the other profiles, this was really important because the Anthem AVR, you have to measure the speaker distances yourself because ARC doesn't do it like other calibration tools such as Odyssey. From what I understand, ARC is working in the frequency domain and there is no time domain part incorporated yet to measure the time flight of sound. For the subwoofers, I entered the same distance that I had put in for my Denon since it was all calibrated and aligned with the mini DSP. And for all of the other speakers, I simply used a laser measuring tool to get the distances. I'll have a link in the description if you'd like to pick one up. They aren't very expensive, but are very useful over a tape measure, especially in this use case. With the PDF document in hand, I launched ARC, but I got the same results. So Eve was convinced that there was a problem with how I was doing the measurements. After a few voice chats and some back and forth, we realized that even though we were setting the main volume to -23 in the web UI, which is the volume I found to get the sweep level to 75 dB measured, ARC was changing it back to the default of -37.5. I have to say that I wasn't picking this up initially since I wasn't in the room for the calibration. I realized that it was calibrating with a much lower volume. So here's the trick that isn't in the PDF, but I did manage to avoid ARC sneakily putting back the volume to its default value. What I did is run ARC and then quickly pause the calibration during the first sweep, and then manually turn the level back to -23, and then unpause the calibration. The interesting thing was that after each mic position change during the calibration, it tried to drop the level back to -37.5. So I quickly paused, reduced the levels and ran it again, and I went through this for the duration of the calibration and through each mic position stated in the documentation. After it finished, the levels looked much better than before, and when I played back my favorite test movie being Captain America Civil War, and a scene that I have watched over 100 times during various calibrations in my room, I was very impressed with how it sounded. However, Eve said that he could make it sound even better. I will leave a link in the description to where you can download this PDF guide if you're experiencing the problems that I did, and you can give it a try but use at your own risk. So once I performed the new calibration based on the guide, I sent the ARC3 file across to Eve. He took the time in manipulating and sending it back with 3 different profiles added. I loaded it into the MRX740 and started testing. Profile 1 was the original, which as I said sounded great already. Then I played number 2. We were on a messenger chat when I tested, and Eve will attest to my reaction when I played it back. I was very impressed with how there was a huge improvement in the positional sound in the room. Objects had a realism to them as they moved around the room, and the LFE was hitting my back through the seat. I then moved on to Profile 3, and it was a more balanced approach and had more volume in terms of thickness to the sound. It was good, but I really preferred Profile 2. Then I tried Profile 4. All I can say is, wow. I was completely blown away with how good Profile 4 was. I think Eve was expecting 4 to be the best, but he thought that 3 would have been a bit better than 2. So it shows that the room dictates the sound, and I absolutely love the way that he made Profile 4 sound in my room. Hands down, this was the best sound that I think I've ever heard in that room since its inception. I really don't know what Eve did to improve the sound, even if he gave me some hints. We just didn't have the time for me to look deeper into the file to analyze it and fully understand what was done. And again, it's beyond the goal of this video, but it's important to state that ARC should do a great job with proper measurements like my Profile 1, and there is still some juice left that you can extract in the Pro mode of the Arc Genesis. I know Eve wouldn't want me to say of him that he's an expert with Arc Genesis, but in my opinion, as he's a physicist with a master's degree in electrical engineering, he certainly has an idea of how it all works, and to say the least, he is very passionate. After spending a few weeks and countless hours with it, this is not a receiver for a beginner or for anyone faint of heart. It's like an unrefined beast that needs to be tamed. It's packed with features, but it's rough around the edges. If you can get past the bugs like I did, it will make your room sing. More advanced users will sure appreciate the flexibility provided by the 4 different speaker profiles, or the capacity to define countless different input names, with each having their own parameters, but all related to the same physical input if desired. Initially, I was a little apprehensive as I'd never really played with Anthem before, and if I wasn't motivated enough to get through the bugs, likely my review on the Anthem would have been tarnished, and no matter how good a product this is, I know that my view on it may not have been very favourable. It's a real shame I can't have more time with it, but alas, it must go back to Sydney Hi-Fi Monavale, as it was generously provided to me as a loaner by Mick for this review. If you're in Sydney, I can't recommend Sydney Hi-Fi Monavale enough. I'll have links in the description. So let me get to more details about how good this Anthem MRX740 sounds compared to what I'm used to. Bear in mind that there is also a very low distortion power amplifier in the mix with the Electra Theatre HD2. I'll leave a card up above if you'd like to check out my review of the Electra, and likely if I'd had my Denon X8500 in preamp mode, there would have been an improvement as well. But my impressions, well, it just sounded better. There was clear channel separation between the surrounds and the height channels, and this was great because one of the main reasons I love the Civil War demo is that there is a lot of flying and objects moving around from the ground up into the sky, and the Anthem did a great job of seamless transition between the bed channels and the heights. And as I said, I'm also very familiar with this demo as I use it a lot during calibration in my room. The next thing I noticed was super clear vocal performance. I have the Krix MX10 front soundstage, which are made for cinema, and I will say that the Anthem really did bring out the best in them and did have a slight edge over my Denon X8500. There was more detail and clarity in the top end, and this alone really makes the Anthem MRX740 a worthy choice. The Anthem is frustratingly good because on one hand there are bugs which I think there should be no excuse for being there in a product that is deemed ready for sale, but when you get it dialed in, it is so good. Owners of previous models of Anthem AVRs have said in the Facebook group that Anthem always works hard to get all of the bugs fixed with new firmware updates. By the time I was doing this review, a new firmware version was actually released. Does this firmware fix some of the bugs I encountered? I can't say, maybe it has. If you're prepared to put the work into it and learn how Arc Genesis works, follow a precise calibration method, then this receiver will pay you back with amazing audio in your room. Now, the big question is, do I prefer it over my Denon? Thankfully, I don't really need to make the decision as it's a loaner and the MRX740 has 11 channels versus the 13 that I need. The Denon is a great piece of kit and will serve me until I can save up for something better, but if you're in the market for an 11 channel receiver and have a power amplifier that you can pair with it, the Anthem MRX740 could be the one for you. But as I said, you need to go in with both eyes open and be prepared to dive in and have an open mind so that you can learn how it all works. I will leave links in the description to Eve and the Anthem Audio Lovers Facebook group, and I'd very much like to thank Eve for spending all of his valuable time from halfway around the world to help me dial in the Anthem MRX740. Knowing full well that this was only for a short time, it's very much appreciated. I'll also leave links in the description to where you can buy one. It's not an affiliate link, but if you're in Sydney, consider checking out Sydney Hi-Fi Monavale, and I'd like to thank Mick again for loaning me the receiver so that I could do the review. If you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, make sure you smash the like button for me and consider subscribing to the channel to be notified of my future videos. I also have a Discord server with over 750 members, and it's growing with a passionate community discussing all things home theater, audio, video, movies, and more. So I'll leave a link down in the description to that as well. But that's it for this one. You'll catch me in the next one. Bye for now. Right, so now that I've finished recording the video, I just thought I'd stick my head back in front of the camera because I think it's important to just mention a couple of things. The first one being that when you do a product review, it's important to be as neutral as possible and not let any of your personal biases cloud, what you want to say about it. So I don't believe in trashing products either. It's just something that, for me, I think it's, we should be grateful that we have all of these amazing products out there and, that we have access to them. and that they're affordable for the most part for people that are into this hobby. So when I am given something to review, I try to have an open mind. I try to dig deep as hard as I can into finding out the core of it, and to give my honest feedback on what I think about it. Now, I was very measured with my review of the Anthem, and you know, it just was very frustrating because the sound in that room that I get from it is amazing. But I just was very frustrated with the bugs and the amount of time that I had to put into making this video to really do it justice was more time than really I would normally have or get or allow, which is, you know, throwing out my production schedule with other videos. I've had to delay them. And, you know, I'm very grateful to Mick, you know, for loaning it to me for an additional week. And also to Eve for helping me with the PDF document and all the troubleshooting that we did. So I just thought I'd, you know, end the video this way. Although the video's ended, this is just sort of like a bit of bonus content from me, unscripted, just talking from here and letting you guys know that a lot of work goes into making these reviews. I don't do them lightly. And, you know, if you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. I just wanted to sort of get that out there. I'm not here to convince you to buy it or not buy it. I'm just giving my feedback on it, you know, to the best of my abilities in the short time that I have. You know, other products that I've got that I've owned, I'm able to do a lot more on them. This is probably the most in-depth that I've gone on a product that I'm not keeping. So again, really, it is an amazing product. It's just rough around the edges. It's super frustrating that they didn't fix a lot of these things. You know, it almost feels like we're the beta testers, you know, people that are, you know, putting in the time and then reporting back. It'd be nice if they told us this. You know, well, I didn't buy it, so I guess it's a little unfair, but, you know, other people have spent their hard-earned dollars to buy these and then encountered problems. And it's not just me. I've seen a lot of evidence out there from other Anthem owners which say that they're having problems with their receiver. So Anthem, if you're listening, Eve is a great guy. I don't know if he's available to work for you guys, but man, he did an amazing job helping me. Even with the language barriers aside, we got there, and I will say that it sounds really good. I won't say that it doesn't. It does. But it is just rough around the edges. So hopefully, Anthem, you're listening, you can fix these problems, and, you know, you can show people what you can actually do. So that's where I want to end it. I just thought I'd put that in there. I don't normally do this, but I felt that it was important because I pumped a lot of time into making this video and uncovering some of these things and to try and get to the bottom of them. It would have been far easier to just write it off and say, look, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. It's a pile of junk. Don't buy it. But, you know, if you put the work in, you can get a lot out of this receiver. And there's a lot of passionate Anthem fans out there. So I hope none of you are offended by this. You know, I'm not trashing Anthem. I think this receiver has a lot of potential if they can fix the firmware bugs. And any new ones that are shipped, they just ship working. I think, you know, that will be a big bonus for you guys. So anyway, I'll leave it there. You'll catch me in the next video.